Goodness me, it's a lot of gnomes. Hi, I'm Sarah and this is my gnome cabinet. So this one obviously can't fit in. There are more upstairs. We're not going to talk about those, but this is where I keep most of my gnomes. And the reason they are there, the reason most of my gnomes are here is because of my cat, Whisper, who has noticed that gnomes are very mouse-shaped and mouse-sized for the most part and hunts them and kills them. So I need a glass cabinet door. Why don't we talk about where I started gnoming? I started gnoming with someone else's pattern and I started riffing on it and having fun. And so a bunch of these in here are actually not mine at all. And very quickly, they weren't the original designers either. So Tatiana Karpkova started me off of this whole journey, and we will get in here and grab a couple of the ones I knit based on what was going on there. I don't know if I have the original gnomes, the pure versions. I think these two might be some of the originals. We knit the hat and the body separately and had to sew them on, which I didn't love doing. And the bottoms were rounded, and so they're very tippy gnomes. I also didn't use weighted stuffing at all in these, and so that was frustrating. So I started playing, and my taller ones just are circular bottomed and they're tippy because there isn't weight in them. I started adding color work. This pair cracks me up. Just hang on. I knit Gandalf the gray and Gandalf the white. That was a lot of fun, and I just started going and going. So those are some of the gnomes that are in here. Up here, I've got a lot of the versions of what became the Adventure Gnome, which was one of the December Mystery Countdown gnomes, with a little double arm here, and these that are 100% inspired by my husband, if not commanded into being because of them. So let me show you a couple things I did. One of the first things I did was I just grabbed a gnome I already had in existence and picked up and sewed on I-cord, or knit on I-cord, and then did a little foot. And I was really pleased with this. It actually has a little heel, and then we made a foot out of that. It's almost like a sock turn, right? But my husband was like, what about those curly toed feet? So I was like, fine. So I tried it another one. And this one I actually knit in the round with quite a few stitches and then did a curly toe version. I didn't like knitting it in the round. It was very annoying to do that much in the round without it being I-cord. I also kind of learned a little bit about what it does with this style of body. So I decided to do the rounder body so that we could actually have them kind of underneath and we wouldn't see the join so much. As you can see, I prototyped a knee bend. Can you see how janky that is right there? And I did stripes and some different lengths to see what I liked. Tried some duplicate stitch. That was going to be really hard to describe because the stitch count is constantly changing and I didn't want to make the gnome too difficult. So, oh look, I don't always take care of all my ends if it's at the back. Sometimes I just move on and forget about it, apparently. But I do love the colors in this version. And I think, see, that's one that the cat got to. What's next? Well, in here, we've got a lot of really different things. So I almost don't know what to focus on. I do, for instance, a lot of riffing on my own patterns when I have playtime. As a designer, you don't always get to have fun with your own knitting, but these are ones that are all sort of variations on Noah from No Fun Like Gnome Fun. This one is more of a Naomi, but I did something really weird and the bottom kind of went all puckery. Still love it. This was actually meant to be one of my Advent gnomes. I knit 25 gnomes from the Naomi pattern in DK and fingering, and I use them as an Advent calendar for myself. This is one of the DK weight gnomes, and it's just a little too big. I riffed on it and it's a bit too big for that, so it became a covered gnome. This is Noah. Pretty sure I taught that in a recent class. No, I used it for all of the gnome schooling basics tutorials. This was actually how I taught the I-cord tutorial, the 2-color I-cord, and I just turned it into the top of the hat. This is Woolfolk Flet, which is a beautifully textured yarn for beards if you're interested. This one's called Gnombledore. It is one of the prototypes for the Gnome Pun Included pattern with the sorting hat inspired wrinkly fluffy hat here. This is another one from that pattern, and I've got at least one more somewhere. Oh, because I did a worsted weight one. Where's that one? Here, we got this one. This is more of that Woolfolk Flet yarn, just amazingly puffy and fun. So yeah, these are the exact same pattern. No change in stitch count or anything, just the size. I didn't stuff this one quite enough, so he's got a bit of a kink, but I kind of think it adds to his wobble in it, and it looks good. Oh, I'm gonna have to clean this whole thing up when I'm done. Let's talk about this one. I also knit some gnome clothes in a pattern called Never Naked Gnomes, and I've got a little cabled pullover here. I've also got a lovely dress, little picot frilled edging there. The pullover, plain pullover. Where's my cardigan? That's worrying. I'm not seeing my cardigan gnome. We'll find them eventually. I also obviously did it for the bigger size. So these are Natasha size gnomes. This is the Norbert size gnome from Never Not Gnoming. So they are great. I got this yarn when we were in Norway. It's Hillesvåg. I don't remember what the yarn line is called, but that's the brand. And I bought these 3 colors and apparently accidentally bought the colors of every Norwegian house in the country. We bought it our first day in Norway, left and went out to the country and did a big hiking vacation, and well, it was only 5 days, but we were basically in one rural spot and every house we saw was red or white or this kind of amazing yellow. So that was just a circumstance and an accident, and I just love it. So I re-knit all the Never Not Gnoming gnomes in that yarn, and then did the clothes in it as well. There's also a scarf, and as I said, a cardigan somewhere. You may notice that I have multiples of the same gnome sometimes, looking very, very similar. And that's because I often prototype one, and then I need to knit it again to make sure that I'm filming the tutorials. So first time I'm knitting it, to make sure that the yarn is working and everything's going well. But then once I know it's going well, I need to shoot tutorials. So I often will end up with 2, depending on how the prototyping process goes. For this one, I prototyped it also in like an extremely un-Sarah set of colors. I was really wondering, how do I give yarn advice, not giving away the fact that we're going to hold these 2 yarns marled and doubled so we can marl them. And I wanted to see if this gnome, which is Nice to Gnome You, it's Nikki from that pattern, could handle like super wild contrast, super wild colors. And I really think this pattern works well. It also, people have done it in really subtle fades, more subtle than I've got here. This is Leading Men Fiber Arts, and I can't remember who I used for this one. Nikki is got a little kangaroo pocket here, and yeah, really cute. Love the little camper style. She's got, and a little short row hat so that she can have this lovely folding over the nose kind of look. This is a fun one that most people won't have seen yet. Yarnable's subscription box approached me about doing a Leprechaun Gnome, and this is Neil. Neil is my Leprechaun and looks really sweet. The yarn is incredible. It's from Hypnotic Yarns, and I designed it so that you could use it for leftovers of socks if you wanted to turn the yarn into sock, turn the yarn into socks and then leave the rest for leftovers. This will be published sometime in 2023, available to the public. Here's a failed prototype. This was going to be one of the Jimmy Bean's gnomes, and just didn't get the proportions right, the hat right, the body shape or size right. It's just didn't work the way I wanted it to. It's not a chef's kiss gnome, if that makes sense, but I still think that there are a lot of lovely things about this gnome, and no gnome goes unloved. I don't have any of the Jimmy Beans gnomes because I had to send them away so they could take photographs and do the promotions in their store and the whole thing. So I need to reknit this collection. Those ones will also revert to me, and in 2023 I'll be publishing the 6 patterns. That is the Grimblewoods collection. I have a couple of trees in my cabinet just for I'm gonna probably have to move them though, it's getting really full in there. But these are things that often show up in the picture books and the pictures I shoot. The picture books are available in the countdown gnomes I do in December. And these are just from a craft store. Oh, here's our Cardigan Gnome. Here we are. I just love this little garter ridge on the bottom here. Just makes me so happy. I also, for this gnome, knit a contrasting band right in here. I think it really looks, it just pulls together the whole ensemble, you know, the ensemble, the gnome ensemble. Last year's Christmas gnome, so 2021, was Leave Gnome Stone Unturned, where we had Knobbleberry, who turned out to be looking for Newt, who had taken the lamp, the North Star lantern, and wanted to light it on the North Star, and a little backpack for carrying Newt there. This was my original prototype, so I thought it was a bit tall, so I took rows out, both the hat and the body. Nope, this was the original. This was the original Knobbleberry, and the prototype I knit in yarns I just happened to have on hand. And I thought it was a bit tall, so I took some rounds out of both the hat and the body. And then when I re-knit it in the yarn we were gonna use, look at that, it worked out to be identical in size. So it's a really good thing I took some rounds out, don't you think? And the yarn for this is from Dream in Color. As is the yarn sort of for the final versions of the Adventure Gnome here. I won't be able to remember all the gnome yarns and all of that, but details are on, if it's a patterned gnome, the details are there. Let's have a look at, we've got Nellie, Oh Gnome You Didn't, which was the first gnome I did without a beard, and that was the last clue. Instead of the beard, we got a scarf, and so I said, did I just knit, whoa Nellie, did I just knit a gnome without a beard? Oh Gnome You Didn't. Kind of a joke, but the little pockets and the big nose and the floppy hat was, should have tassels everywhere, but the cat killed the tassels when he got at this gnome. I sure would love to have gnomes sort of all over my house, but instead I have them in a cabinet in my office upstairs, and there are a couple more gnomes that are not down here that we could have join us, but my husband's having a meeting and we are not gonna reshoot this. There's enough gnomes. We have enough here. I end up with a lot of Noahs, because Noahs are the gnomes that I use when I teach classes on how to make gnomes. These are a 3-hour gnome. This is from Gnome, pun intended. There are 3 gnomes in that pattern. There's Noah here, who has a lot of the things about my gnome patterns, but simplified a little bit. And these are worsted weight. No, this one's a fingering weight version. I don't know why he's so big. Maybe I adapted him. But you can make Noah lickety split. Also comes with Naomi. Here's another worsted gnome. Naomi is armless and really charming with a little ball shape. I knit 25 of these ones for the Advent project that I did. And then they also come with Niblet. Niblet are these gnomes here. Niblet is designed to be really tiny. This is the worsted weight, or no, sorry, this is the fingering weight. The worsted weight is still only about this big, like only a little taller, really fast and super cute. The clothes from Never Naked Gnomes, if you knit them in fingering weight, but put them on the worsted weight Noah, they fit this pattern as well. Here's the first prototype for Not Just Another Gnome. which I have 3 of in the end. So I really enjoyed this project. I love cables, and helping people learn to master cables and to be confident was one of my main reasons I designed this gnome. It was a really fun mystery, and I loved this little surprise at the bottom of the body. So this was a clue, and then we opened up the bottom there. This is Marinated Yarns. Marion is a great dyer who does amazing greens. This one's a very blue-green, kind of sprucey, but I've got this one plus another one, and I don't know if you can hear. I don't know what bean I used, but that is a very dry bean for that one, hey? Oh, let's talk about the newest gnome. The newest gnome is Gnocchi, who is color work with a slightly different shape and no arms and just a whole lot of nose and a wild beard with little knotted fringes. And oh, I just love her. And yeah, she makes me so happy. Can you see that there? Yeah, Gnocchi. And then this is the one that I knit with Sea Turtle Arts yarn. I also have the prototype, and this prototype I knit while I was on holidays this spring, hiking in Banff while the snow was melting. And this is with yarn from Das Mondschaf, who is a German dyer who's been with gnomes right from the very first mystery knit along. Oh, well, we can't forget Nemo. Nemo here with his magnificent beard that is all done in one piece, with some amazing little casting on and binding off. The first colorwork gnome that we did with it was narrow, but sort of ever changing these bands. Then we did the body, and there was fun little stuff. And then the very last clue was a sweater, which had an option for colorwork. Here we are. And yeah, this yarn is Dye for You, who is a wonderful Canadian dyer, local to me here in Manitoba. And we jokingly call this both the Cthulhu beard and the squid beard here in our family. And people wrote me afterwards saying, oh my goodness, I didn't know I was going to be doing my first ever sweater when I did my first ever gnome, which was so fun to find out. Yeah, so gnomes aren't built like humans. They don't have necks, and they don't really have shoulders, so I had to do proportions a little different, but this is basically a top-down raglan sweater, and it's very similar to what you would do for a real sweater. So that is, gnome is where you hang your hat, also known as Nemo. We've got Norwin. Norwin is from All Work Gnome Play. Norwin owns an ice cream shop. And if you were part of the knit along, you got this free little ice cream cone. There is a small charge now if you want to buy it. I think it's a $2 pattern. But Norwin is a lot of fun. This one I knit in ginger snap yarns. Did some really interesting things. It was really interesting trying to get the mittens design, because mittens are tiny and kind of fiddly. And gnomes are already sort of like, I wanted them to be as unfiddly as possible. And with gnomes, we're already kind of in a fiddly zone. I try to make it as unfiddly as possible, but still I wanted these mittens to work, to look like mittens, and yet to not drive people absolutely mad. I'm really pleased with the solution I eventually figured out. I'm also really pleased with these cabled braided cable braids. These cabled braids are just super adorable, and they really look like braids. We had fun with the ice cream theme with her cone-shaped hat and the swirl and the little, the little loop of ice cream for soft serve. I tried with this one, putting in cardboard circle at the bottom to make it something that would stand a little differently. And you can see, like, this gnome squishes, this gnome doesn't, and this one sits very, very flat, whereas this one sort of settles onto things and can tip a little bit. But as long as you use enough weighted stuffing in the body, usually it's not a problem. I was just experimenting with that. I've also got Norwin's failed prototype. Here, Norwin's failed prototype had bigger mittens, much thicker arms, We did the hat totally differently. So I started with knitting an I-cord in the round, joining it somewhere around here, and then picking up from the I-cord and knitting the hat up. And I just thought knitters would hate me if we did that. It was not worth the look. And that's always the payoff, right? Is the payoff worth the effort? We did something different here. We did a welt instead of the I-cord. And I feel like we got a very similar look for much less hatred. She was also too big. The proportionality wasn't working in terms of like narrow hat, big body, but here's Norwin. Also, I tried fiddling with the placement of the braids, and you can see they come up over her shoulders and it looks a little weird. So that is one of Norwin's evolutionary ancestors. She taught me much. We haven't talked yet about Here We Gnome Again. This pattern is something I'm so proud of. I love Bavarian Twisted Stitch cables. I created my own charts and it worked out exactly as I imagined. I sort of sketched it out, charted everything, knit it, and it did its thing. Now it's supposed to have a pom-pom, but again, this gnome has seen some damage, some battles with the cat. I was pleased that we survived mostly intact. Some of the fabric is a little weird. We've lost some of the weighted stuffing with worsted weight. If you use the poly pellets, they will come through if the stitches are sort of massaged and stuff. So we've this poor Gnancy here has lost a bit, but she's still going strong. I need to redo her pom-pom for her. But this is a pattern I really enjoy. The twisted stitches just pop in these little cables. Look at that. Look at that. You're beautiful, Nancy. You are beautiful. Here's Nancy in fingering weight. Very big size difference. Here we go. Fingering and worsted. This is Lichen and Lace, and this is Miss Babs. You'll notice a lot of my gnomes with this red and 2 grays, because I'm reknitting all of my patterns this year for Year of Gnomes, and I am using 4 colors from Miss Babs. So 2 grays, this amazing red called Kobold, and then this almost white called White Peppercorn. And they just, they work so well together, and I'm really having fun reknitting patterns that I haven't gotten to in a long time because I keep designing new ones. But as you can see, I really like to knit things again and again. I think there are just a couple gnomes I haven't mentioned, and then we know at least I've mentioned all the patterns and basics. So from Never Not Gnoming, we have Nicholas. Nicholas was designed to be an ornament with a round bottom and a little loop there. And there are a couple of ideas in the pattern for how to do the loop. I talked about Noah, but Noah is also available in fingering weight, as are Naomi and the other one. I did them in worsted and fingering, but Noah is really small in fingering. So here's Naomi, who's smaller than Noah, and here's Noah in fingering. I'm not sure. Oh, you know, fingering weight Naomi, I think she's in the van. She's my traveling gnome. Oh, here's a size comparison. Here's a Noah in worsted and a Noah in fingering. And I think the last pattern to talk about is this one, which is Gnome de Plume. Natalie, I think if I'm remembering right, was designed to sort of evoke spring in her original version, which is upstairs, but I reknit her in the Miss Babs colors recently. And she has a little leaf hat topper and these lovely sprouting things. I left it open to the knitter, whether they were flower buds, tulips, or little mushrooms, and a leaf-shaped beard here. And then you probably want to know 2 more things. What about this gnome? And what about this t-shirt? The t-shirt is available in a shop I have. It's called Imagine Landscapes, I think, on Shopify. It's really simple. They're printed to order with a couple other gnome things. So that's just if you want that. They are made when you order them. And then this is a riff on Noah in bulky weight yarn for my doorstep. And I had to play around a little bit. So Noah is knit from the top down, and then there's a garter stitch, and then instead of picking up and knitting the body, it's all done sort of in one thing. And I knit the garter stitch in this fluffy, bulky yarn, but it wasn't enough of a difference. So I actually just cast on a few stitches and knit sideways. I just did garter stitch until it was big enough. It was actually too big, and so there's a big overlap right here. About that much is overlap. And then use the same yarn. Hey, see? My cats. This isn't even the gnome killer. This is soot. Soot is gentle and would love to love gnomes, but whisper is deadly. Okay, so I followed the horizontal nose, and then the fluffy yarn wasn't really working. So I grabbed some bulky yarn I had in my stash, some acrylic, and just kind of faked a nose. And then I don't think these were I-cord, I'm pretty sure, but that's actually not many stitches. So these may actually be bulky weight I-cord, but I did stuff them to make them stand up, and just have a lot of fun. I filled it with a big pop bottle that had about this much dried beans at the bottom, and everything else is just air, because big gnomes just eat stuffing. They just, nom, 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 nom. They're huge. So by filling it basically partly with air, I was able to not use every scrap of stuffing in the city. But still have weight, and it stands really nicely because of that. So that sits on my porch step in winter, and then freezes to it in spring as the melt freeze cycles happens, and then I rescue it again. Goodness me, it's a lot of gnomes.